So I go do that and my business falls apart again. I'm just like, oh man, like what am I missing? And that's where the first kind of clue to business came up for me, where it was like, who you surround yourself with matters. And I realized that I was in an environment that nobody was successful in. And it's no offense to any of those realtors. A lot of great people were there. A lot of great businesses were there. I think most of those people have moved on from that particular location at this point. But it's one of those things where I wasn't surrounded by people that were growth minded and thinking about building businesses. I was surrounded by people that were happy to do sales, and that's okay for everyone.
Yeah, I'm in the mortgage space, but you talked about that original person that you met back in the day. And the reason why you said heck no to the mortgage space and moved on, it's not because of the mortgage space. I'm not sensitive on that side, but I was more sensitive on the idea that you talked about he wasn't a business person. If you can kind of flush that out, because I'm seeing a pattern here that you talk about that person's not a business person. You go on to the other, brokerage. You didn't see the business person there. And then you went to Keller Williams. You saw the business systems and you're sort of starting to dial into that a little bit more. What's sort of the difference in your mind between sort of that operator mentality and the business person mentality?
I think the biggest thing is how much they're doing versus how much leverage they're creating. You want to be is how good you're going to learn how to leverage. And so as I was looking at these individuals, and particularly that person that you would mention on, is the output didn't match the input. And so I'm getting sold on this world. It's so great. We're doing all this incredible stuff. You can build any kind of life that you want. And I looked at the individual and I said, well, why aren't you then? Like, you're the owner of this brokerage. You're the guy. You're the man. Like, in fact, that person's out of the business now. They don't own the mortgage brokerage anymore, and they don't own the real estate brokerage anymore, and they're completely out of the business. Maybe I'll tell you offline who it is, Steve, just to give you context. But I was seeing metrics that this person really didn't know what they were talking about. And so they were selling me on a dream that they hadn't accomplished. And that's I think that happens a lot in sales jobs and in business roles where you get sold. People tell you all this great stuff, and you got to kind of ask yourself, I think you said this to me very recently as well, and I'm going to probably mess this up, but it's like, hey, how many people do you employ, right? How much money, what's your best year ever? How much money are you making? And how many businesses have you grown? And if you can't really answer some of that stuff, are you really the person that I should be taking advice
Yeah,
from?
and that quote was a great quote from a fellow from Cardone Ventures. His name is Brandon Dawson. And that was his big thing is if you haven't made more money than I have, if you have not had employed more people than I have, and if you've not sold a business bigger than I've sold for a better EBITDA that I've sold it for, what are you going to bring to the table that I don't already know?
Correct.
And, it sounds like a bit of a bravado. But what it's saying is you're qualifying the source of the data set. And I think that's I think that's extremely important. And that's one of the things that it's great to hear because, when you talk about your history, it doesn't sound like you were given a silver spoon and a clear path to success from the start.